Hey everybody, Jay Weidner, Reality Check, hit like and subscribe and all that jazz. And yeah, so it's the end of the harvest. I'm almost done with all my ranch work and uh ready to do more shows. And my new movie has been accepted at Amazon. It will be out probably within a week. I don't have any links to it, so I can't put anything up. It's A Clockwork Shining, Kubrick's Odyssey 3. And I think we got through Amazon in like 48 hours. So that was really amazing. And I don't know what to say. Anyway, today I'm here with something, I'm going to do something different today. I'm here with Owen Benjamin. He is a actor, comedian, producer, conspiracy theorist. And if you type in his name on the internet, he's a serious troublemaker. And people are, he had the audacity to call out what Cliff High calls the Elohim worship cult, if you know what I mean. And just like when I did it, he got in a lot of trouble. But you got canceled. I didn't get canceled. I just got kicked off YouTube for a while. But and you're still off YouTube, right?
Yeah, I'm not allowed on Airbnb, PayPal, nothing.
Oh, really? They got you on everything.
Oh yeah, everything. And it's calmed down a lot though, because I think I figured out some of the spiritual aspects of it and I just got more, gratitude and the whole like you can only control what you create. And once I
Yeah.
got more productive and less antagonistic about anything that I wasn't actively trying to do myself, things calmed down. And I saw kind of the balance of the world, how it's just, it's all good.
Yeah, that's really the best way because you can't get too caught up in politics because they're such low vibration. And
Totally.
yeah, that's why I don't do it. And people say, "Why don't you come on here and talk about the election?" And I'm like, "Eh." But I will say something that occurred to me today. Exactly 4 years ago or so, right in the 2020 election, I did a show with an intelligence agent named Danny Estulin, very interesting guy. And I said to him, I just remembered this today. I said, so with the elections in 2 weeks or whatever it was at the time, and we don't know who's going to win. What do you think will happen if Trump wins? What do you think happens if Biden wins? And he said something which, in light of what's going on, is very interesting. He said, if Trump wins, everything just goes on like it's going on. He said, if Biden wins, expect massive death. And I thought, really? And then he went on to describe what it was like to live in the Soviet Union when everybody died and how you thought you knew somebody and then realized like 10 months later they were dead and how the graveyards started filling up. And then, of course, we know that we have a very much increased fatality rate going on right now in America. And so this guy actually turned out to be right 4 years ago. And couldn't believe or understand what he meant, but somehow he knew that this would happen. I have no idea how. This was way before COVID or any of it. So I don't know. Kind of weird.
I was just doing a stream about communism and I lived in Eastern Europe for a bit. I was obsessed with that stuff, like figuring out how to see it if it's happening, what causes it, tyrannical governments. All my friends do study abroad in Australia, and I go to Brno, Czech Republic. And I always thought it was going to be a useless degree, World War II history, and now it's so needed. And I'm trying to explain to people what the signs are, despair, victim consciousness, the acceptance of lies,
Yeah.
like bureaucracy over truth. Like it's a behavior. And that's the consent where people want something for nothing. They want, it's grievance identity. And so the more people act like that, the more it kind of grows. And, it's also a lot of it has to do with the financial system and like calling people like animals. You were saying you're on your ranch. I mean, I have, cows, goats, all that stuff. And I
Yeah.
can't help but sometimes see the overlap of how, gates are kept, pastures are managed.
Oh,
You give
yeah.
some in, you put them in debt, you take their future,
Yeah, I mean, you really figure out how we're being managed when you're managing all of
100%.
your animals, and yeah, I kind of feel bad a little bit about the way I manage them. I don't ever hurt any of my animals, but you have to kind of sometimes be the you have to be the top dog, or they
I'm
won't
the same way
respect.
though. I do dairy and I have a soft heart with animals too. I'm not,
Yeah.
but I see why people would like,
Oh
I
yeah.
I have
You're
castrated
stubborn.
males, because then I don't even eat them. I'm like, I name them and we're buddies, so I'm not, this World Bank mentality with my animals. But I was thinking, it made me laugh. I'm just like, what would you do if they had more consciousness? You'd say they were brave and beautiful and make them feel proud about it. And I'm like, this is so manipulative what
It
people.
is. I spent 3 months in communist Poland a long time ago in Warsaw. And for the same reason that you probably went there. I wanted to see what it was like. And I was
Yeah.
left leaning at the time. I wasn't when I got out of there, though.
Yeah.
And, everything was broken down. Everybody was really drinking vodka really hard. Um, Nobody liked their job. And
Totally.
I just, it was like such darkness everywhere. And this was about 5 years before the fall. So it was at the very height, and secret police everywhere, and nobody could really talk. You'd only have to get them in a quiet place and get them on one-on-one to actually hear what was really going on, because they were so afraid. They thought I might be CIA. And uh, I came away with this whole thing about leftism is that leftists demand that we today believe things that almost no one in history ever believed. And, like men and women are the same. Family is
Yeah.
not the bedrock, family is the bedrock of society. Um, War is necessary. It's awful, but necessary. And the left is like screwed our heads up so bad that we don't understand the basic tenets of what makes a society function. And so, I do worry about that. I, you know, I do worry about where we're going in this whole thing. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was since you had a background like me in the movie business, I want to ask you about today's movie business, because I've been incredibly fascinated by especially the last 3 years. I saw it going down and everything, but I knew that what's that movement called where you're supposed to believe the woman? What's it called? Um,
Feminism. Me too.
yeah, no, I know Me Too movement. I knew the Me Too movement was going to bring down Hollywood, because the great secret of Hollywood is that it's actually a sex machine, and they're selling off sex for money. I used to go with producers, and we'd go visit fat furniture businessmen in Akron, Ohio, that were 60 years old or married and kind of deflated years ago. And you put in 20 million in this movie, you can hang around with, this actress and this actress, and for the whole shoot, and you can be on the set every day. And that was how it was sold. And it was the actresses knew that they had to do it in order for all this to function. And so when the Me Too movement came, I said, oh, this is the death nail of Hollywood, because nobody will do it now. And that was what, 5 years ago? And it's just been completely deteriorating. And now I actually think that Hollywood may die.
Yeah, I think so too. I absolutely think that. It's not getting the attention it did, or because you have to have a story that people want to look at, and that requires truth. And so if you're in the inverted world
Yep.
where men are women, and debt is money, like debt is wealth, and it's like, and being a victim is strength. It's like, if you're in that world, you can't story tell in a way. Like old Hollywood, you'd have your little rabbles, and you'd have your inversions and your agendas, but it would still have to have a good story to get people, like Braveheart. You're like watching, or Gladiator, you're watching the hero's journey, and
Yep.
they separated from that completely. And so if no one's watching, doesn't matter how much money you have, or you don't have the power. There's an influence power. It's not hard power, it's soft power. And yeah, I think it's failing.
I do too. And I don't know how, what's really strange is that if you go to like X, you see all these little clearly staged vignettes that are on there, trying to make a point about something or make a comedy scene or something. Little, 1.5, 2 minute little vignettes. And I'm like, this is the future. People with their little tiny cameras and their friends and going out and shooting it over and over until they get it right and putting it up, and eventually X is probably going to start paying content creators. So there's probably even money in it, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, that's what I did with the special. I got a special coming out tomorrow on my website, the owenbenjamin.com, but the story's fascinating. It's so yeah, I was repped at CAA and I was in all this stuff, and then it was like the trans kid movement is the thing that really changed my life because I just wouldn't relent. I was pretty easy going with everything. I wasn't raised super strict about, gay people or anything. I was always very chill. But
Yeah.
when the jump went to children, where it was like obviously to change the mind of a child to do something that they can't change, it just started a change in me. And especially having my own children,
Yeah. That is
that
good.
just seeing the innocence of it, and it just because I was never like the destructive guy or someone who wanted to hurt people, but I could be nihilistic and just like, I don't care because I didn't care about myself as much. And then when you have someone who like loves you and you see how good people can be, I'm like, I gotta do a good job. And so that started me on this whole thing. And so, I'm kicked off all these platforms. I mean, I was banned from theaters and clubs, and dude, I have no criminal history, and all my jokes that were called hate were never scapegoat. I mean, I'm telling people right now, I'm like, don't blame groups for your problems. Just make fun of them like everyone else, you
Yeah.
know? And that's a big difference. And so, because you're letting people in on the joke, it's actually healing, you know? And so, but in communism, you have identity classes where you're like, no, you're below this group, so you can't do the joke. And I'm like, America. I'm like, no, there is no identity classes. Like it's a funny joke. And that's how I think American could bond through like work humor on construction sites. And so long story short, I'm kicked off everything. I mean, there was a direct attack at my financial ability. So from money I got on a sitcom, I bought a house to rent out. Airbnb kicks me off. It was in my wife's name. So I can't be on PayPal. I can't even do my own shows renting out my theaters that I would sell out. And so we crowdfunded for like the price of a lot of tickets, like a Dave Chappelle ticket.
Yeah.
And we put the money together and bought actual land with no debt, put up our own like tents. My audience built the stage, and we shot our own special. And it's really good. And it's outside because cancellation is a choice. It's like all they can take is comfort. They can take comfort and access to their systems. And if you're like, that's what got me into animals and gardening and, growing my own food. Cause I was not going to take the vax. I'm like,
No.
I'm like, I will literally grow my own food if I have to go into a grocery store. And so, it was the same way with comedy. And now, I mean, people might expect it to be a very harsh special, but it's actually clean. I don't even like, it's not even vulgar,
So it's on your website.
It will starting tomorrow. It's called Must Be Nice. Yeah. And it's a special, it's high quality. It's outside of
What's it
outside of
called?
Hollywood.
What's it called?
Must Be Nice.
It must be nice.
Yeah, and last year I did
Definitely link
Noble
to it.
Savage.
I will definitely link to it. I saw parts of it on your trailer or something. It looked
Cool.
pretty good. Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're getting stuff out. I am too. I retired in 2018. I got canceled myself, and I came out here. I had the ranch, but I was living in Boulder, and I moved here as soon as I could, and I immediately started a gigantic garden, got animals and chickens and everything, and my wife thought I was completely nuts. She's a city girl from the East Coast, right?
Yeah,
Then I started, buying things that you would need in an emergency, if you know what I mean. And
totally.
and then she really started thinking I was whacked out because the house was filling up with all sorts of really strange things. And then COVID came, and then I was working writing something on my computer, and she walked by. She walked into the pantry where I kept all of my stuff, and she comes in. I see her in there for like 10 minutes, and she comes out. She goes, "You must be a genius."
That's
So
great, man. Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, same with me with COVID too. It was like everyone was saying I lost my mind and ran to the country, and then it hits, and they're like, "Oh my God, that crazy guy was totally right."
yeah, yeah. No, my stockbroker goes. We go to meetings and we say the only guy in the world that's safe is Jay.
That's great. That's so funny. Yeah, what
Yeah.
do you see coming? What do you see coming down the pipe?
I see that either they're going to throw the election for Kamala or Trump will win. I have a feeling Trump's running away with it right now because I read the polls differently than everybody else. I believe that 8% of Trump supporters will never tell anyone who they're voting for. And that's proven every time. He was down 8 points in 2020 and he came in even, if you believe what you're seeing. And the same thing with Hillary. She was up, I think it was what, 54 to 46, something like that. Yeah, 54 to, and he came in and beat her. But
Yeah.
but he did. And so I think it's running away, but these guys can't let Trump in because then he will open up the books just see about the assassination itself. I mean, attempt. I mean, so yeah, I don't know. I see a kind of a civil war that's different than any other kind of civil war. I see a civil war where the people in the country say, no, well, we're not sending our stuff to the cities anymore. That's
Yeah.
that's what I think is going to happen. I think the governor of North Carolina not letting the National Guard go in to those places is outrageous. And he still today he hasn't done it. And they're all waiting. There's like thousands of them waiting in hotel rooms, ready to go in to North Carolina and help. And he hasn't given the order. So this is the kind of tension that's going to happen. It's going to not going to be, like North versus South. It's going to be country versus city. And then the city is going to find out how much power the country has over it. You know,
Totally agree, man. It's about dependence. That's like the
yeah,
real line is like dependency.
it is. And I've heard from people that tell me that the people in North Carolina that are in those mountains, they're willing to crawl over glass naked to vote. So they think they're going to stop them. I don't think it's going to work. Those people are pretty industrious. I don't think that's the other thing. I don't think the blue people understand the red people. I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand the work ethic that what it takes to run a ranch, for instance, how much work
Yeah.
it takes. You got to get up at 5 in the morning to get going in the summer because it's so bleeding hot by noon, you can't work anymore. And so I just don't think they understand it. Yeah, you can make life hard, but life is already hard. And and also, we got chickens and lettuce and apples and animals and they don't. So I think that's the way the war is going to go, and I think you're going to see there was three waves to it. The first wave was the people like me who were either on the edge of leaving the cities at the start of COVID or had already done it. That was the first wave. Then the second wave was the wealthy people in the cities who realized what was going on. They scammed as fast as they could. Um, I had a rich friend in Manhattan. He called me up in maybe June of 2020 and he said, what's it like out there in Colorado? I'm like, oh, people are absolutely assholes and it's freezing cold all the time. And he started laughing and he said, okay, so what's it really like? And I said, well, it's all right. And he said, is there a mountain town that a city boy like me would that grew up in the city could live in there? And this guy's got a lot of money. And I said, well, you'd probably only be happy in either Aspen or Telluride. Every place else is just kind of cowboys. And
Yeah.
and 2 months later, get a phone call from him. Yeah, just bought two homes in Aspen. I was like, you came out here and bought two? Nope, bought them over the computer. I was like, what?
Wow.
And you know how
That's
much a home in
wild.
Aspen costs? It's like $7 million for a 3 bedroom house. So, and so that was the second wave of these very wealthy people moving out here and actually trying to change the politics of like places like Colorado and Idaho, actually. And that's another problem. The Californians coming in here trying to change everything. And now then we hit the dearth where all the people that had gone in the first two waves are going. Now we're getting the trickle of the people who don't have any money. They're doing anything they can to get out of the city because they know what's coming. And so now we're getting the third wave, which is a very poor wave, very poor people moving in, putting up ramshackle houses and things. And that's fine with me. I don't really care. I think it's just smart to get out of the cities. That's all.
Yeah, I see that too. I see the dependency and just a lack of productivity where people look down on quote unquote flyover states. I see a lot of these guys, even on the right. Like I see people make fun of farmers, and I'm like, dude, that's keeping your life going. It's without food, you got 48 hours, you know?
Oh yeah, and my family makes fun of me. They're all city people. They make fun of me all the time. They think I'm some bumpkin out there in the country. They have no idea how nice it is out here, and I'm not going to tell them. So
I know. And
yeah,
how many of these people, if their job disappeared, no one would notice, you know? It's like, even they're like, oh, I'm the top executive at marketing. I'm like, you're basically a magician. Like you're a wizard to trick people to buy shit they don't need. Like you're not. Now, what about the guy that grows the corn? You know, and it's so inverted.
it is. It is. Yeah, and people don't realize. I was just talking to a good friend of mine who's an expert in this, and he told me that 45% of the jobs in insurance companies have disappeared in the last 6 months. He said almost all the jobs that are about to disappear over the next year, and it's a lot of jobs. It was shocking, the number. All women's jobs. There's hardly any men's jobs that are going to disappear, at least on this first time. And maybe, but marketing, I can actually see how I used to market. I can see how I could get an AI to do really good marketing.
Totally.
Actually, yeah, well, absolutely. Actuary jobs in insurance companies, you're gone. Computer AI is going to be much more exact assessing, risk assessments than a human being. Same with stock market. AI should be a better stockbroker. It'll make decisions not based on stupid human valuations, like, oh, I love my Nike shoes. I'm going to buy 100 stocks of Nike.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right. So I'm lawyers gone. I mean, 90% of the legal stuff is going to be all done by AI. I already know people who are fighting lawsuits and they're just using AI. They're representing themselves and they're using AI to answer all their questions. Was there any precedent for this? And then the AI searches and finds the case, gives it to you. And so I think that we are on the edge of a technological innovation that we've never seen before. And I know of several inventions that are coming out that are going to blow the world away. And what's interesting about this is it's all coming out of the Navy. And so I kind of did a deep dive in it. And the Navy had these propeller problems at the end of World War II. And these giant propellers on the ships were all perforated, but they were stainless steel and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So they hired all these scientists and they came in and they came to the conclusion that the spinning blade in the water created higher dimensional vortices, like little tornadoes, which were drilling into the metal and causing the marks on the blade and causing the blade to have to be thrown out. And the Navy's like, oh, that's a mind blower. And so that started naval research into all of this. And this is like 1947 that
Yeah,
they,
they know a bunch. Yeah.
oh my God, they know so much. And so anyway, the Navy is behind Trump. Okay. It was Steve Bannon, naval officer, who went to Trump in 2015 and told him a whole bunch of military guys are behind me. We're asking you to run. You know the whole story. It's a very famous story that Bannon tells, right? And it's the Navy. And the Navy had decided that they wanted Trump to be president because all the presidents before were CIA. Bush, Clinton, all the way to Carter, who was Navy. Carter was Navy, and he purged the CIA in the Halloween night massacre. Admiral Stansfield Turner, who was naval, he purged the CIA, and they never got over it. And we're never going to let another Naval Reserve person ever serve as president. So the Navy went and got Trump. Well, the CIA, of course, destroyed Trump. And so now what I think is going on from the number of inventions that I see coming out, that the Navy has decided they cannot do this politically. They're going to do it with technology. They're going to release free energy. a whole bunch of things. Cars that fly, that don't pollute, don't use any energy. And it's all been here. It's all been here for like
Yeah, they
30.
have it. I mean, those vortexes, I mean, that Victor Schauberger stuff is
Yeah.
fascinating. Like they look at fish and they like make a little vortex and it
Yeah.
pulls the fish.
Yep.
Oh, and they study that stuff. I mean, I was looking at this guy, this British guy. I can't remember his name. He was totally canceled too, and he was like the most famous engineer in Britain. I did a stream on him. I just don't remember. It's like Lathwaite, his last name.
Hmm.
And he was showing, he created the maglev trains,
Yeah,
but he was showing that something spinning has less gravity. So,
it
I mean,
does.
I'm looking at it, looks like a flying saucer, but he's holding something. And when it spins, he can hold like a heavy weight above his head. And people just wanted to shut him down. And I can totally see that in the Navy. And the Navy is the most important branch because it's
Yeah,
all the supply chains. It's whoever owns the supply chains owns the world.
that's right. And they know every inch of the world,
Yeah.
the ocean, like nobody. So I mean, have super advantages. But yeah, it's all this plasma physics that's coming out, and it's really astonishing. And they're literally harnessing, 99% of the universe is plasma, and these new inventions are just harnessing that. They're harnessing all of this plasma and using it to power the world. And it's going to be quite amazing because once we couple this new technology with I don't know if politics is going to matter anymore. That's where I'm concluding that politics is about 40 steps behind where everything is. And it's kind of watching it is kind of useless. It's like watching the dog chasing the car or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially with the level of dependence people are at because
Yeah,
politics matters if you have leverage, and leverage is just your ability to produce and your honor. So it's like if they know that someone is dependent and they'll do anything, they don't care what you want
that's
because
right.
it really doesn't matter in nature. It's like, and then the consent button. I mean, when you're looking at groups of people, I mean, the Democratic Party, it almost isn't even a political party. When they were doing abortions and sterilizations outside of their event, I was like, dude, that's a eugenics program. Like, imagine if as a comedian, I'm like, yeah, come to my show. I'll totally like kill your offspring. It's just crazy. Like they're trying to lower the population of their supporters. So I'm like, what is this? This is there's something more going on than leadership of a country. It's more just it's like a psychological eugenics situation, I think.
Well, if you believe stuff that isn't true, then reality isn't real either. So therefore, there's nothing real. And that's where they're at. They're in this incredible place where they've got themselves believing things that aren't real and it's not going to work. And, uh, you know, I can't tell you how many times, I've seen somebody with Trump derangement syndrome and they think they're being serious, but when you're watching it from the outside, it's like one of the funniest things you've ever seen. So, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
just like when Trump's funny because when Trump's funny, he's kind of showing the world that he doesn't have victim consciousness. And he just did a podcast that I shared that I thought was really good. He did it with a bunch of comedians, and it was really good because
oh
his
yeah,
humor
I want to see that.
because humor you have to know you have to have a firm grip of reality and then an ability to play with it and the two layers at the same time or else you literally can't be funny. So I know I sound biased because I'm a comedian, but I think genuine humor cuts through a lot of stuff, and that's one thing that Trump has is his humor and his ability to deflate rhetoric. Where wizards can spend billions on a spell, and with a nickname he can destroy it, and that's the wizard wars are where it's. I mean, human perception control is where it's at for these people,
Oh
and
yeah, that's
Trump just saying crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe. I mean, two words can just undercut so much effort and rhetoric.
absolutely. I really I didn't have a TV for a long, long time, so I didn't know who Trump was outside of maybe I think I might have read his book. And it must have been about 2006 or so. I turned on the TV in a hotel room. I was at a conference, and Trump was on some interview show that I don't even know what it was. And it was right at the height of the Rosie O'Donnell controversy. And the
Yeah.
interviewer goes, "Well, what happened with you and Rosie?" And then I don't know who Trump is, and so I'm listening, and he goes, "Well, it was at my wedding with Melania, and we had to ask the security to remove Rosie away from the wedding cake because the other guests wanted to eat it too." I fell off my chair laughing so hard.
So funny.
Yeah, and then later in the same interview, because now I'm starting to like Trump, right? And now later, 5 or 10 minutes later, he goes, "Why don't you?" The interviewer goes, "Well, to Trump, why don't you make up with Rosie? You guys should become friends again." And Trump stops, freezes completely, goes, "I came as a guest on your show, and you're telling me that I'm supposed to be friends with Rosie?" And did a whole gangster thing on this guy. And I don't think I ever saw the guy again, actually.
That's hilarious.
It was total gangster. Then I liked Trump from then on. And I didn't follow him or anything until he ran, but I liked him as a person. And I'll
Yeah.
say this one other thing. I've never said this out loud either. I know three people that know Trump. I've never known anybody that knows another president, but I know three people that know Trump. One is an African American woman who worked on The Apprentice, and she was my assistant at Gaia. And she worked on The Apprentice for 7 years with Trump. And I said, "What's he like?" And she said, "He's an asshole. He's a really nice guy, though." And then the other one is person who did stock tradings with him, a very wealthy businessman, said, "Oh, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever known." And then I know somebody that you would know if I said his name, who's works with Trump, an insider, has been with Trump for years. And he calls me every once in a while. And he's the one that gave Trump my movie JFKX. So I was really happy about that. And he told me that Trump is the biggest conspiracy theorist that you'll ever meet. He was the biggest conspiracy theorist 30 years ago that he had ever known. The guy was just constantly reading conspiracy books and talking to everybody about this and that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
I can believe it.
I can't imagine not being a conspiracy theorist. It's just like human nature conspires. So the rejection of that, I don't understand how that became a an insult.
Yeah, my slogan is you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but I get to call you a coincidence theorist.
That's
Right?
funny. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so I believe one time I had Peter Dale Scott's a professor at Berkeley. He wrote a great book about the JFK assassination, and I was talking to him one time years ago, and he started telling me about he started going on and on. It was a radio show that I was interviewing him on, and he started going on and on about how conspiracy theorists are. He said, I said, "So you're a professor at Berkeley and you're, this esteemed guy and you're being called a conspiracy theorist. How do you feel about that?" And he said, "But conspiracy theorist, it's a very spiritual term." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I mean, well, you see the underlying reasons for things. And so conspiracy theorists are actually very spiritual people. And they also probably in most cases apply the same thing, the same reason they apply to politics to the spiritual world." And I thought, you're right. They probably do. And everyone I've met has. They're actually, the more conspiracy theorist you are, the deeper your spirituality is.
I like that a lot because you're looking at the nature of something and you're also taking people at their word. It's crazy how much it's so obvious sometimes.
Yeah.
Like this Diddy thing. I was talking about that 6 years ago. Same with the Mr. Beast thing that just came out. I was analyzing what he does, and it's so obvious. He does like humiliation stuff where he
Yeah.
puts people in extreme pain, and then he makes money look trivial, but shows how much everyone wants it. And I'm just talking about like if you're a young kid and your dad works super hard for 40 grand a year, and you just watch Mr. Beast like burn $100,000 to have someone sit in a room for a year. I'm like, this is like a satanic thing. His name's
Oh, yeah.
Beast. I'm like, like to get famous, he would say the same thing over and over again for 24 hours. Like he has these YouTube shows where he's just saying, like, "I want to meet Jake Paul. I want to meet Jake Paul. I want to meet Jake Paul." He does it for 24 hours. And I'm just like, what you're watching is like some dark stuff. And so then when all the scandals start coming out, people are just like, how could we have known? He's so giving. I'm like, dude, his name's Mr. Beast. He he puts people in horrible pain and then makes I don't know. I'm like, it's so obvious. Same with Diddy and same with all that stuff. I'm like, dude, they tell you, they literally will tell you what they're doing. And I think spiritual people can just see it. And other people, they really don't have eyes to see. They're just like, but how could I have known? I'm like, he said so. He jokes about it. He like literally told you what he is.
Yep, yep, I can see it. I was seeing it too, and I was seeing it with Epstein. And I was saying years ago they were doing it, long before Epstein or Diddy came out. I would I used to always tell the story of Meyer Lansky had a mob convention in Chicago in the mid '50s, and he comes out on stage. And he's got a movie camera, a 16 millimeter Bolex, and he's got a Tommy gun. And he says, which one is more powerful? And everybody goes, the Tommy gun, the Tommy gun. It was wrong. The movie camera is more
So
powerful.
true.
And he set up all those houses in San Francisco and Seattle and Chicago with the two-way window mirrors, and put cameras behind it all. He got all the politicians and the judges, and it was well known. The CIA had ties with the mob in the mid '50s, and they found out all about this, and they started it too. And so it's not like it started with Epstein. It's been going on since the '50s, and that's
Yeah.
how they control everything.
Yeah, and the way I naturally have always been immune to that because I don't have a like a false face just naturally. Because what they do is they find the chasm between how you present yourself for power and what you really are.
Yeah.
They record it and then they use that shame as leverage. And
Oh
so
yeah.
if you don't have a chasm, like I have privacy, like I don't, say everything online, but I don't misrepresent myself. And so because of that, it's never that type of stuff wouldn't work. And so that I always just look at how to avoid stuff. I go to the root, like how to
Sure.
bear. Because I think the new thing they're doing is AI on social media, where they create a perceived consensus where they can have 100 people being like, "Oh, you're a kook. Oh, you're unhinged. Oh, you sound like a real." Everyone knows you're an idiot, and
Yeah.
it's all it can happen in a fraction of a second. And how human it can be. Like you can talk to AI and be like, no, no, I have like with your movie, you could be like, no, I have this evidence, blah, blah, blah. And they'd be like, no, I happen to know that's the opposite. And they're like communicating. And then people are looking at that and they're thinking, oh, and it changes their perception. And so I think AI being like shown as real people online is like the new Meyer Lansky video camera.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to be big. And then there's going to be, although I can tell when an AI video, a generated AI video. So I don't know about the deep fakes are going to be that good, but definitely they can fake what you're saying. They can fake responses to it, control it. And it may be more prevalent than we think even. I'm starting to really think that. I mean, they have unlimited cash, right? Unlimited cash, literally unlimited. So, you know, I know this guy lives out in the middle of nowhere like me, and he's a big guy, famous guy in the conspiracy world, right? And he told me that his neighbor built a house right next to him. Somebody bought the lot. He had no houses around him. Bought a lot right near his house. Built a house, put a huge underground in the house, and he's convinced that they're shooting cytronic weapons at him, right? From the house, right? Because that's why he moved out to the country, get away from her.
What's a cytronic weapon?
It gives you headaches and uh,
Yeah, like an energy thing.
makes your teeth hurt, and it's pretty painful, I guess. And I've never had it, and I hope I never have to have it. But yeah, so just these weapons they use, like they used on the
Cubans or something.
American embassy in Cuba. Remember, all
Yeah.
the guys got sick.
Yeah.
That was
The
cytonic
Havana
weapons.
illness or something.
Yeah, yeah, that was cytonic weapons. And so there's mostly microwaves and different kinds of frequency waves they blast at you that cause your body to, get malfunction, get you sick. So you don't want
Yeah.
to mess with it. Yeah, so the other thing about living out in the country is you're staying away from toxins. That's the problem with the city, because there's so many toxins out there. And the other thing that's going on that's really interesting is, I don't know if you've noticed it, but the whole RFKJ exposing the food. That's pretty interesting. I mean, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, everybody's actually talking about the poison food supply, which they
Yeah,
weren't.
that's why I'm so passionate about getting people into gardening. I mean, I started a whole social media platform just for that. During COVID, I had this thing, know 10 people within 10 miles, shrink the supply chain.
Yep.
And so, because I'm like, you already have your power. It's exponential too. Like people are like nodes, like all this stuff. So it's like, so if you just do a small amount, like one plant, two plants, you start seeing the nature of something, like what you're talking about with spirituality of conspiracy theories. So like the nature of the lack of limitation in nature breaks so much of their control mechanism. So
Mhm.
the idea of scarcity is a major thing for control. And so I'm just all about people growing their own food because these massive giant farms have such a long process to get to grocery stores that they start genetically messing with it, putting preservatives in, all this stuff. And I'm like, if you want it cheap, you gotta, start like get to know a farmer or grow it yourself. And I'm trying to show people that it's totally attainable because
Yes,
that's a massive problem. And then all the health problems jack up the health insurance and all that. It's like this giant wheel.
it is.
And um, and so I think that's one of the biggest things is the problem with processed food. And then how, like, I'm a big solutions guy. So it's like, so how do you fix it without a lot of money? Because I always assume that people don't have access to organic food prices. And so I just really try and get people to grow stuff and have
You
fun with
can
it.
build a greenhouse for about $200. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not that hard. I have a better than that greenhouse. But my 800 square feet can grow absolutely, even up here at 8,000 feet. I can grow all the way up into late October, early November in the greenhouse.
Oh,
So
you're at 8,000 feet. Wow. What's that like?
life is tough at 8,000 feet.
No, that's intense.
It is. It's tough.
When you
It's,
go down to sea level, though, do you feel like an Olympian? Just all the
yeah.
oxygen?
Oh, I do. I do. I go to California to the beach every January, and man, I can outwalk joggers.
Wow.
Literally
Yeah,
outwalk.
your blood must just be epic.
It is, and but it's tough though. You got to be really tough to live up here. We get like 100-mile-an-hour winds and dust storms, and
Yeah, no, that's insane. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I used to do the Aspen Comedy Festival, and I remember just having like two beers and being drunk.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
And it was like sometimes I just felt, I don't know, it just I could tell that it was a place that was just more intense. And then and you're 3,000 feet higher.
Yeah, and it's everything is intense. The sunshine is intense. The cold is intense. The
You're
stars
up there.
are intense. It's
Guys,
everything
the stars are epic there.
epic. 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, if I hadn't, I'm still intending to buy a really good telescope and start videotaping things that are up there because I see a lot of stuff moving around up there. I want to find out what it is.
Good night vision. I've
I have
like
night vision.
yeah, I see stuff up there that I'm like I'll see something go like this and then go like that.
Yeah, yeah, I see
Oh,
that too.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'll see something that looks like a shooting star, but it looks like it goes in like a hole, like it's like a portal.
it disappears, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I see that all the time. I'll be looking at something that'll be moving and then it just goes out.
yeah.
Happen, and then sometimes I'll be looking at the sky and I'll see something light up, right? And then start moving. And it's like, what is
Starlink looks like Santa's sleigh. There's like, there's like a string of them, like beads.
that was amazing. That
Amazing.
really was
And it
amazing.
works good. I use it. It's a
Do
good
you?
service. Yeah.
No, I was thinking of checking it out because living out here in the country is difficult to get good service.
Yeah, I mean, like in the middle of nowhere, I was having streaming problems and I always wanted to avoid that if I could. And I would like streaming, every stream would have issues. And I got the best one and I was even using my cell phone. And then Starlink, it's like you can be in the middle of nowhere. It gives you great service.
So I wanted to
I'm just
ask you, you
worried about
got
monopolies.
canceled, did you do any effort when you got canceled to get uncanceled?
No.
You
I
just
mean, I was like trying to explain myself. I didn't want to be, the bad man, but I wasn't wrong. And so, I mean, me and my manager had a laugh about it, but the CAA guys were I think a lot of it for them has to do with competition too. It was like, I really quickly figured out how to be productive myself because I have a farmer mentality. It's like, oh, I can spend, 10 grand on a special, sell it on Vimeo. Why do I even need an agent? And they're like, oh boy, someone's full of hate. So like literally that was what that was part of it.
No, you're
And
absolutely right. That's how to do it. That's exactly what it is.
yeah, it's a cartel,
Like
it's
Candace
like,
Owens is doing right now. I mean, she's like gotten 350,000 views, and she doesn't get kicked off. Because I guarantee that if I got on YouTube and said what she's saying,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would get kicked off.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
For me, I can't even have a piano. Like I play classical piano. I can't do
Yeah.
a channel with just piano. But here's the thing: I can do interviews all day long. They don't care at all. They just won't let me have a channel,
Right.
which I don't mind anymore. Because I'm like, I didn't create YouTube. I get really into gratefulness because I'm just like, it's just a good vibe. And I'm like, you know what? Anytime you let me on, I see it as a win because I didn't build it. And so it forced me to build my own, and it's actually been great to have your own servers and your own stuff. And
That's the way to do it. Yeah. Don't have any. I know filmmakers that worked in Hollywood for years, and they tell me, oh no, if I write a script, I'm just going to direct it myself. I'm not going to even bother with it. I don't want to deal with the whole rigmarole anymore. I don't want producers. I don't want agents around me, right? And the films are actually pretty good. So the same thing with my new film. I know, very small crew. Don't care. Use a distribution service that doesn't have any people involved. It's apparently all AI. So I just put it in and they go and they contact everybody themselves automatically, Apple TV and Amazon
and Apple and Amazon don't seem to be like crazy. Like
yeah,
Netflix seems kind of crazy to me, but might just be comedy. If you're doing comedy that isn't overtly degenerate, they don't like it.
yeah.
But Amazon and Apple seem to be fair. It seems like they're
Yeah.
following the rules. Like
They are. Yeah, I
they're
mean,
cool.
they really promoted my JFKX. I couldn't believe it. And they're
Yeah.
really promoting Clockwork Shining, and both are pretty dark conspiratorial films, and uh just interesting that and X is having a kind of a leavening effect too on everybody because and also Joe Rogan is now on YouTube. So no, that suddenly made YouTube not I think you should try to get back on YouTube. I really do. I don't know. I think they've lessened it or something. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what.
I feel that way too. It's like, cause like I was banned on Twitter for 5 years. I was like persona non grata. And now I'm like fine on that. They monetize me. I can have subscriptions. It's no problem. And for them, it didn't it wasn't as personal. YouTube, I think the last CEO despised me,
She
but
did.
she died. And so and this is the craziest thing. This is why there's so much weird spiritual stuff involved. So I was called anti-Semitic for exposing the Sackler family. This
Yeah.
is the scam. And this is why, I really don't like what's going on with the scapegoating now, because my whole thing was never about blame. It was about breaking liability shield. So it's like this family is doing something really bad. And just because they're a group doesn't mean they can avoid accountability. And so I would go hard at that. And so because of the oxy thing, about saying they're not addictive and everything that happened. And
Yep.
and I got a strike for that and all that. It was anti-Semitism. And then now those are huge documentaries. That was back before people were talking about them. And her son died of opiates, and so I felt bad. It wasn't like I felt good about that, but I was just like, man, I wish he could have heard my stream, because my stream was all about addiction. It was all about like getting not being dependent on a chemical. And that's why I don't have bitterness. I'm like, I have a healthy family, it's like, what else do I want? Because I went through a phase where I was pretty pissed off, but I got out of
Bet
that.
you were. Yeah, I used to
I was
because I used to
pissed.
watch you every week, and when you got kicked off, I was super pissed.
Yeah, I was like, cowards, and then I just remembered to count my blessings. It's true. It's like the oldest knowledge is the truest knowledge.
Yep. And honestly, looking back at it, those guys should be embarrassed. But they were,
Embarrassed.
oh my God, it was so embarrassing. And what they were saying, and there's no accountability, which is really too bad. And I wish we could get some because those people need to be, I don't know, hung by clothespins on their ears or something.
I think they've made their own hell though. I think that they're that's the thing about communism. And like, and look at Kamala. So Kamala was what, 10th in the Democratic group? Like everyone hates her. And now all of a sudden they can just create an idol out of nothing because they're dealing with pretty vacated people that, they're not looking for who they actually like. They're looking for like, who should I like? Where am I going to get a lollipop from? And that's their power, which isn't real power. It's like fake. So it's a matter of time until it falls apart because free
You talk
market
about
just be
comedy. There's so many skits about Kamala out by regular people. They're actually pretty funny that
yeah.
I don't know. You get making fun of a person like that and openly with hundreds and hundreds of people doing it. I don't think that's going real well for her. But
Yeah,
they could,
because that's good too. Because the vacated don't like to be mocked. They're like and that's one reason why I was so dangerous to everything because without even realizing it, I didn't have like a intention, but I have that Trump quality where I can take this huge spell and use a little sentence to undo the whole thing. And yeah, like the comma thing. So the vacated type, it's like, oh, this is who you should like, unless a lot of people are making fun of it because they're like a swarm
that's right.
of sex where they're looking to see if they're the good people. And so that's why open mockery is so dangerous to communism because their own supporters like don't want to be, they're so weak that they can't be mocked.
That's right. That's why they hate Twitter so much or X, whatever you call it.
Yeah, like you can mock Trump and he wouldn't even like he wouldn't freak out. Like a Trump supporter, you can make fun of Trump because I'd make fun of how Trump was dancing to YMCA about what it looked like he was doing to two ghosts. And they wouldn't get mad. They're just like, oh, it's pretty funny. Because it wasn't like deranged. It wasn't like he's literally gonna destroy. It's just a joke. And so they can't take a joke because the joke unravels the spell, you know?
So is comedy coming back? It sort of seems like it is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I think that we could have a golden age of comedy.
we could.
Because comedy's like relief stress. It's like my
Well,
son, my 8-year-old, didn't really know how to describe my job. And we were doing like a story night. And he was talking about like, he's like, my dad's job, he drains despair from people like a plumber. Like almost like I'm just like plumbing, like it's like a massage. You find where the trigger is,
yeah.
you help people relieve it. It's not personal. It's like I used to be a heckler at a Renaissance fair and when I was in high school, and I'd find what I thought someone had pride in, and that's where I'd attack without any judgment.
Yeah.
Like a giant fat guy doesn't care if you call him fat. It's someone that, is a little
Just
over.
slightly
Yeah,
plump.
yeah, yeah. And so that's what you do. And it's like a blessed guy. You're like, I'm like, I was thinking about my audience. Like, what are the sacred cows there? And last year, like I made fun of veterans because I was like, because my audience is pretty right wing. So it's like, I was making fun of that because that's kind of a sacred cow. And a lot of vets would write to me and they're like, man, that was so refreshing. I was like, haven't you guys had enough? I'm like, you get all the free drugs, you get to go. And I was just making it seem like they have this easy life and
Right.
they loved it because, you're taking away victim consciousness. I did that with someone in a wheelchair. I was like talking about, I'm like, we give you everything. You get the best parking spot. These mothers have to walk. We pay for your throne. You get to just, I'm like, the least you can do is put blades under it so you cut some grass. And like that's the thing that like the left, like or the thing that the hollow, the empty, I don't know how to describe it, the victim can't handle that. They're like, no, I happen to be a trans because they can't have that playful banter. And that's why comedy, I think, is such a revealer and people want it so bad.
It looked like it was
They're just
dying
scared to
out
be
for a
mocked.
while there. It really
Oh,
did. It was
horrible.
awful. Yeah, I searched for something funny. You couldn't find anything. It's coming back now, though, I think.
Yeah, but it's what you said. It's organic because because people are like, they'll say I'm like the funniest comedian. Like people do say that sometimes. They're like, man, after Norm Macdonald, like you're all we got. I'm like, dude,
Every comedian
there's
is.
funnier guys. I'm like, there's funnier guys at job sites. I'm like, dude, there's guys you don't know who they are, and you'll watch a little 2 minute thing, and it's funnier than what I just did. I'm funnier than all the approved guys because they're literally paid to suck because it's like the tallest nail gets hammered down. It's communism. Don't outshine your master. Don't, like play ball, bureaucracy, all about alliances. It's like Machiavellian. And so the real good stuff is going to come out of just people making sketches. I mean, I constantly see people like just a video and I'm like, that's funnier than I've seen Hollywood make. And it's just a guy. It's literally just a guy.
There's at least 10 videos a day on X that are just funnier than hell.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just glad it's coming back. So tell us about your special. Tell us about what prompted you to make it.
Yeah, it's I didn't want comedy to die, and I'm passionate about it, and that's why I wouldn't accept cancellation because for me it's like my nature. Like I feel like I just want to keep making comedy, and I'm fortunate to have a ton of support and people that have stuck with me and like the journey. And so we had this festival on that land I told you about, where like over 1,000 people came, and there's kids, and we built a play structure for the kids, and there's a tug of war, and we talk about good food. We we had our own cattle on that land. And so we sold Bertaria beef, like from the land they're standing on. And so it was just a really special experience. And I want to, keep making it. So recorded it and we're selling it tomorrow at owenbenjamin.com.
And is that Vimeo or what platforms is it
No,
on?
it's all our own stuff. I got kicked off Vimeo. I
kicked off
like
Vimeo, of course.
every single swarm Patreon, I got kicked off for a Me Too joke, but they let on actual rapists.
Yes, they
like
did.
literal actual rapists.
Yep.
And for me, the joke was, it was so simple. I was like, I went to a women's rights march and I keep telling these girls like, ladies, you got to calm down. You're being a little too aggressive, a little too thirsty. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, the pound me too. Come on, relax. Like go on a couple dates, pound me too. The entire joke is dramatic irony where the audience knows it's a hashtag. I think it's a pound sign. They literally said I was mocking the survivors of rape. And I'd have women write to me. They're like, that was so funny. Like like you helped relieve stress. It was nothing. They kicked me off Patreon. I had a legal battle with them about that because I was like, this is communism. And that was not even on Patreon. It was on Twitter. So they took a tweet and they said, you just committed a thought crime. We're taking your money. And so that was a 2-year legal battle, still wouldn't let me back on. But yet guys that literally are raping are on.
Yeah, I know you're right.
And so I'm just like, okay, it's up to, we just got to keep crushing. And the more obstacles thrown, if you stay grateful, if you stay productive, if you serve your fellow man, I love that I don't need them now. I love that, I was forced into being more productive. It's like a blessing.
I'm glad you brought up Norm Macdonald. He's like, I think my favorite comedian of all time. And
All time.
You do remind me of him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, all time. Yeah, he's such I can watch his, he's like the only comic where I can watch his jokes over and over again. Like it's a Led Zeppelin song. I'm just like, look at this new thing he's doing. Like, because he's so intelligent, but he plays the simpleton as he's doing this highly intelligent thing.
Exactly.
There's so many layers, like, because like what you make someone laugh with, you have different intelligence levels too, where different groups will laugh at different aspects of a joke. And Norm would hit the entire range. And it was just better than anything I've ever made, and just to be able to admire that, I really like Norm.
Yeah, there's a YouTube of him.
I'm not Norm.
14-minute joke.
Cool.
He makes and he actually ends up at the end of the 14 minutes with the punchline of the first sentence of the 14 minutes.
Was that about the moth?
Yes. It was brilliant. It was
so good. I mean,
how could he do that?
He was just so many funny parts were just, you can't even describe why it's funny. Where he's like, exactly. My daughter Varshskaya fell in the winter. She was falling The winter, it was so cold. He was just telling this long thing, and then it was the simplest little joke. The light was on.
Yeah. I was just bragging to everybody how much I liked him when he died like the next day. It
I
was-
know that was like one of the only celebrity deaths where I was genuinely really
I mean,
sad.
too. I was really sad for like a week. I really was. I missed him a lot. But you could kind of look at him and see he's getting sick. It's just the
Yeah.
last couple of years, he was looking like there was something wrong, and he didn't tell anybody apparently
No,
that
and he was still funny. He was
I mean,
still
funny.
like his podcast was so good.
It was. It was so funny. Yeah, he was the greatest comedian. But you're one of the best too, and I'm really happy that you came on my show. I
Well,
really,
thanks for having me, man.
yeah, and I will definitely link to your special. Everybody, go watch it. I don't think it's not raunchy, and it
Oh,
doesn't have
it
any.
doesn't even have swearing in it. That's the funniest part. I mean, there'll be parts where people feel like they should be triggered, but it's not though. If you really think about it, it's like simple.
Yeah, yeah, gentle comedy like Norm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like norm. It's like you can do it. Like I did an LGBT joke about butterflies, where it's like I'm like I kind of like caterpillars until they really indulge themselves in a cocoon and end up like a lisping painted. Like it's all about becoming a butterfly, and then I'm like they're just easy prey for bats. And but if you're a kid, you don't even know what I'm talking about. Like my whole thing is jokes that adults can enjoy, but a kid isn't introduced to a new idea. You know,
Yeah.
like that old kind of comedy where you're layering it, where you're having that like that thing where if you're not aware, you don't know it. And so I did that for the whole thing.
Yeah, sort of like those old Bullwinkle cartoons. When
Yeah,
you're a kid, you think one thing's going on, and then when you see them when you're an adult, you realize there's this whole other thing going on you could not understand when you were a kid.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and everybody go watch the special. Owen Benjamin's going to be good.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.